And so at the beginning of the anime we are introduced to the main character Mash Burndead, nicknamed Mushroom Head. Mash lives far away from other people in the forest with his 70-year-old foster father Regro Burndead, and the world in which they live all imbued with magic. Here fly on broomsticks create objects from the air. In short, magic is present everywhere and people believe that it is all a gift from God, where even in society the position of people is determined by their skill in sorcery. And each magician has a special magic mark showing the level of magical power, but there is also the opposite side of this world, where according to the laws, those who do not have this mark are so-called scum. Roughly speaking, in this world, the absence of magic in a person means that he has no rights. Just such a person without the mark is our protagonist Mash, who has no magic, but he does have super advanced physical abilities. For this reason, his father hides his son from human eyes and he spends all day training and eating his favorite goblin cream cakes. And our Mash also has a strange affliction with doors. He can't remember how they open, so he accidentally breaks them down with his strength. At all this Mash is very kind and he loves his father, who forbids Mash to go to the city without his knowledge. After all, people there can find out that he is unmarked and then they will be in big trouble. However, when his father left on his business, Mash found out that he was out of cream cakes and he couldn't resist and went to buy them in the city, where firstly his power was seen when he was bending the coins he had accidentally crumpled, and secondly his head came off and everyone saw that he was unmarked. This was immediately reported to the local magical police of Semia, where the chief there was Brad Coleman reading at the time that the student of the Academy Easton, Rain became a candidate for the title of Divine Providence. It is given to mages who have shown the highest degree of skill in sorcery. Rain's face had 2 marks on it at once, the kind of people they call bilinear. Brad heard about the unmarked man and went straight to the scene. At the same time, Brad's drunken assistant accidentally crashed into Mash and started cursing at Mash for dirtying his uniform with cakes. But Mash quickly solved the problem. He ripped off the assistant's uniform and said he would wash it. Then Brad appeared. He saw with his own eyes that Mash didn't have a tag, and at that moment only Mash in this Atama mode didn't care what was going on around him. Then his father suddenly appeared and grabbed his son and ran away quickly so they wouldn't be traced. However, Brad felt that he could get a promotion on this case and he sent his spy bird after the Vance. When the father got home he scolded his son and as punishment sent him to repeat his morning strength exercises, where he went on to say that their lives would change because the police would probably come for Masham. He saw a magical spy outside the window and literally immediately after the magical police broke into their house and asked where is that scum without magic, where Mash at that time was busy with the execution of the punishment, which he did in 5 minutes, and even that squirrel was shocked by his strength and speed. Then on his return home, he again faced the problem that he had forgotten how to open the door and at the same time he heard Brad trying to forcefully ask his father where he was. Because by law they have to get rid of the man insensitive to magic. His father now faces jail time for hiding an unmarked man, but if he tells him where his son is, it will help soften the sentence. However, Regro refused to say anything and we were shown his flashback, which explained that Regro had a magic tag from his childhood. However, he couldn't even use basic magic properly. Because of this, his family in general and any people in his life humiliated him for it. Regro was about to jump off the building, but at the last moment he heard a baby crying. It was little Mash who had been abandoned by his family because he didn't have a tag, and then Regro realized that he saw himself in that child. And he also, for the first time in his life, he felt that someone needed him and he vowed that he would do whatever it took to raise this boy. Then we were brought back to their house where my dad, hoping Mash would hear him, started yelling at him to run away. This made Brad angry and he decided to use some serious magic on his father, but he didn't have time because the next second Mash burst in and he tore down the door and demolished the first helper and left the second helper out of uniform again. After that he told his father that he was not going to run away because his father is his family and he has no one else but his father, so he is going to send Brad and his helpers to the bottom where the policeman decided to use the technique he used to kill dragons. He attacked, but Mash had no problem repelling his attacks with his bare hands, showing that he is many times stronger. Mash picked up his father's wand and threw it like a spear, breaking through Brad's defenses and scratching his face, and threatened him that if he ever threatened his family again, he would bury him. However, in response to this, Brad suddenly offered our protagonist a deal, where Mash will have to enter the best magical academy Easton, where every year the best of the best students become Divine Providence. Brad wants Mash to get in there and become the best. He thought that suddenly Mash is the chosen one and if he can achieve it, then society can recognize him. But Brad wants Mash to take advantage of his fame and money after he gets the title. But if they refuse the deal, Brad will haunt them for the rest of their lives. Mash agrees to the terms. because for the sake of peace around his family he is ready to do anything. Mash was given a magic mark and went to Easton Academy. This academy in its time finished the strongest magic to enter there is very difficult, because only 3% of students from 100 turns out to pass the entrance exams, and this year there comes a lot of elite children of various magical nobles. In this connection our Mash on arrival there was engaged in his preparation for these exams, where instead of studying magical literature Mash studied fitness magazine sitting on his muscles. The examiner, Claude Lucci, who was watching from his window, he was amazed at this behavior, plus he saw behind Mash the super invisible Brad and Regro, who under their super invisible camouflage were discussing how Mash could pass the exam without magic. The examiner Lucci appeared in front of everyone. His arrogance was off the charts and he started to grind his teeth on our Mash, as he had pranked him a couple times with his simplicity. After that Lucci started the first stage of the exam, where he enchanted all the seats and enchanted leaves with letters enchanted with a special spell. The task of pupils will be to crack the letters to restore the written text, where everyone did not believe that Mash without magic can do it, but he was the first to fulfill this task, scaring the letters and breaking the pen in front of them, and in the end, he did it faster than everyone else. He still did it all absolutely correctly, then again pissed off Lucci. After that Mash passed other tests with the same success, using his physical abilities where magic was needed. The final challenge was the monster trap maze, which everyone had to get out of in 30 minutes, where Mash immediately realized that with his speed to pass this maze will be easy. But then to him flew up Lemon Irvine, which began to beg him to take her with him, because as a team they will pass the maze faster, and our good soul Mash agreed to it. However, as it turned out, he has never been so wrong before, because Lemon had collected all the possible traps in the process of going through the maze, which caused them to lose a lot of time, and Mash heard that they only had a couple of minutes left. Realizing that Lemon was stalling on purpose, he decided to run for the exit, but she suddenly pulled out her wand and bound Mash's hands and feet. Turns out she was encouraged to do it by Lucci, and he promised to help her get into the program. She, in turn, told Mash that she had a reason why she couldn't let him take the entrance exam. But Mash outplayed her and broke the shackles at the speed of light and headed for the exit. The Sphinx suddenly came up to the upset Lemon with his legendary question about the creature having different number of legs at different times of the day. He knocked the wand away from Lemon and started demanding an answer from her. She didn't know the answer, and eventually the Sphinx decided to kill her. But suddenly at the last moment Mash appeared, where he answered Sphinx's question that there was no such thing and sent him to sleep, where he further explained to Lemon that he came back for her because he thought she had the same reason to go to the academy as he did. So Mash put her on his back, and with his pure physics he directly penetrated all the walls of the labyrinth, which again surprised the examiner, because the walls of the labyrinth were protected from any magic. No one understood how Mash managed to break through, and it was also observed by the headmaster Wahlberg. All the other students thought that Mash was cheating and started to chase him away, but Lemon stood up for him. She said she was the one who detained Mash on Lucci's orders in exchange for helping him get into the program. After all, Lemon has a poor family and she wants to help them by enrolling here. She further explained that Mash had just saved her and offered to carry her. Lemon briefly fell in love with him and offered to marry him, but Mash refused and just got out of the labyrinth with her. Lucci hears this and decides to use his position to prevent the couple from entering the academy, where they must challenge him and defeat him. But the very next second Mash flew up to him and crushed his wand with his hand. He insinuated to Lucci that he was overreacting with his movements. Then Principal Wahlberg himself intervened and said that he would continue to administer the exam. He told Lucci to come to him after the exam for a few words of affection. Then the director said that everyone would now go through the final stage. It would be an interview, where he first called Mash, who seemed to be a very ordinary student after the recent events. The first thing he asked was, why does Mash want to go to their academy? Mash answered that he is doing all this to become a divine conductor and create a peaceful life for his family. Also, the principal asked, why did Mash then in the maze help that girl who had previously tricked him? He said that he did it so that he wouldn't regret it, and when he did it he didn't think about the consequences. It was all automatic. So the principal decided to complicate the question and he asked, what would Mash do if someone 100 times stronger than him were in Sphinx's place? Would Mash change his decision? He also clarified, what if he had to fight the headmaster of the academy himself? He cast an ancient incantation and some kind of voodoo doll appeared, which transfers the soul of the closest person to the person he wants into the doll, and Regro's soul got into it. Mash realized what was going on and tried to smash it with his bare hands, but couldn't. The director, however, once again, what would Mash do with such a strong opponent? But he didn't answer anything and started to hold back the spearhead with his bare hands. Mash said that it was a test of endurance, because the director would not be able to support such a giant for a long time. The headmaster began to philosophize, saying that power can do both good and harm, depending on whose hands it is in. He said that he saw in Mash noble traits of character, and he likes the fact that Mash at the right moment can show strength to protect the weak. So he cancelled his magic and told him not to take it personally. It was just a test. Mash replied that if he ever faced the headmaster himself, he would beat the crap out of him with his fists. The headmaster liked his answer, but he was accepted to Easton Academy. After that, we were taken straight to class, where Mash once again worked real magic with his physical strength. We were also introduced to Finn Ames, who would be living with Mash in room 302 of the Adler dormitory. As is tradition, Mash broke down the door before entering. Afterward, they started getting acquainted and Mash introduced Finn to all of his muscles. He also immediately clarified how he would get the title of Divine Conduction. Finn explained that in order to do that, you have to collect coins, which come in gold, silver, and bronze. They get them for tests, coursework, extracurriculars, assignments, grades, well, or any other activities or victories. Then the next day, Mash borrowed Finn's broomstick to repeat a scene from Harry Potter. A gray-headed man came to him, where Mash showed him his magic and did the opposite of what he had done. First he hit the ground to make the broom fly up, and then he cast a spell. Greyheads was understandably shocked, so he offered him a broomstick contest. The loser would serve the winner for the rest of the day. Mash agreed to it, literally defeated Gray in a second, and he also broke the world record for speed on broomsticks. Gray tried to object, but he was silenced by a local Malfoy who showed up. Real name Lloyd Cavil. He was interested in Mash. He offered to be his friend, but Mash didn't hear his name and accidentally pissed him off. On that basis, Cavil continued and suggested Mash meet him here after school. He had business to attend to. Cavil then proceeded to beat up the gray-haired man for losing and failing to humiliate the newcomer. Then Finn said that Cavil is the son of a high-ranking member of the Bureau of Magic, which is the highest governing body in the country, and it turns out that everyone is afraid of Cavil because of his father's status, and the headmaster himself is on good terms with Cavil's father. In short, Finn said it was best not to mess with him. After school, Mash was busy making cakes, where he got carried away and forgot about his meeting with Lloyd. The next day, Mash noticed that his potions textbook was torn, and Cavil approached him with a hint. He asked why Mash hadn't come to the meeting, and upon finding out the reason said that he had connections with the deputy headmaster, and if Mash did what he told him, he would help Mash advance towards the title of Divine Providence. Mash agreed to this. Cavil started exploiting him, and while Mash was doing Lloyd's dumb assignments, Mash's textbooks kept tearing themselves apart, and Mash started using Finn's textbooks in a friendly way, for which he called him a good man and his friend. During this time, Cavil had gotten out of line and was just shitting on Mash to clean up after him, where in between Mash discovered that he had accidentally taken Finn's textbook and he went looking for it to return it. At this point, Finn was near Cavell. It turns out it was Cavell who made Finn mess up Mash's textbooks, but after Mash called him his friend, Finn said he would no longer take orders from Cavell, so Cavell decided to punish him, and when Mash showed up with the textbook, Finn was bleeding. He apologized to Mash for messing up his textbooks. He'd done it because he was afraid of Cavell, but now he realized how horrible he'd been to Mash. Lloyd intervened in their conversation and said that it would be better if Finn apologized to him, and also told Mash that today he would have a meeting with the vice principal and Mash could join them. However, our main character after all scene only has approached to Cavil and has stuck him face to the floor. After that, the deputy director has appeared there, and having seen Lloyd on the ground, he at once has told that will raise a question about expulsion of Finn and Mash. It doesn't matter to the vice principal who is right. For him only social status matters, and he can expel anyone at any time. For these words, Mash hit him on the head in the same second. The deputy director was about to attack Mash in the back, but he threw dirt in his face. Turns out he started digging a hole for the vice principal. He threw him in there and started burying him, because if the deputy director can kick them out anytime, Mash can bury the deputy anytime. As a result, after these events, Mash was immediately taken to the headmaster, where he explained that he had received an official letter of expulsion from the Bureau of Magic for punching Lloyd Cavil and burying the deputy headmaster. He explained that Mash had made a serious mistake, but that he didn't think the headmaster would allow a world to exist where kind, helpful people were in the minority, and though their world revolves around the power and strength of individuals, the headmaster has taken his position in order to educate the right mages. As kind as Mash, he wants him to stay at the school. He'll take care of the Magic Bureau problem. He's also the one who told Mash who the divine hosts are. They have a special role in all this, but to get this title, Mash needs to first become the best among the students. To do this, he will have to collect coins for his studies and other achievements, and so Mash was already full of information. The headmaster let him go, saying that Mash is ahead of even harder tests, but he believes that Mash will cope. As a result of all this, our hero avoided serious punishment. However, since he put in place of those two in the academy, he became respected by everyone, and he was invited to the team of his dormitory on Duel is an analog of Quidditch. He was invited by the captain Tom Knowles, the best player of last year, and the next day Mash went to the match, where he tried to explain to everyone that he couldn't fly, but everyone thought he just didn't want to do it. Tom flew up to him and started motivating him, and he decided to finally explain the rules to him, where they should just throw the ball in the ring and earn points, and the Adler dorm team loses very badly. Plus in the next moment Captain Tom was broken by the local Joker. Then the broken captain told Mash that winning isn't the point, it's about participation, and Mash ended up using his magic called leg waving to mimic flying. And then he realized the trick of the game and started throwing the ball through the ring without stopping, making a boomerang out of it. In the end he broke all the records and his team won, for which he got 1 silver coin, and Tom was just ecstatic about the win. Also about Mash's record and about his coin learned about two-line Lance crown, and he decided to remove the mouse mirror, which all now began to spin even more. Lance came to them and put Mash's friends in a special magic bottle, an artifact, and so that Mash could get them back he invited him to the forest. Turns out Lance pulled him up to fight him for his coin. They did it in the woods because duels are forbidden. Well, Mash had no choice but to take his friends. Also in between we were explained about the number of mages in this world, where one-line mages are the absolute majority, and those who have more than one mark appears on average 1 for every 1,000. After that we were brought back to the battle, where the winner is the one who first disabled the enemy. Lance began to expand their arena with his gravity magic, but Mash immediately attacked. But Lance managed to apply gravity magic that pinned Mash to the ground. However, our hero to get out of their pulled roots from the ground, and Lance had to retreat. He used his magic again, but Mash had already adapted to it and almost blew Lance away by snagging his pendant around his neck. In it he saw a picture of a little girl, and Mash thought Lance was a perverted Lilicon man, but Lance explained that it was his adorable treasure of a sister Anna. Consequently, Mash tossed him the pendant. Next, Lance decided to beat Mash by throwing down a bottle at speed with his friends to make him run after them. Lance was able to attack him in the back, but before that we were shown a flashback of Lance where his little sister Anna loved Lance for his kind heart. However, she further contracted a disease that began to consume her mark, and her magical power began to fade. Their parents said that as soon as the mark disappeared they would turn it over to the authorities. Lance strongly disagreed, because his little sister was not guilty of anything, and from that moment he left his home and decided to become a divine providence to change this stupid magic system and save his little sister. Then in the battle, Lance threw the bottle down the cliff, amplifying its fall with his gravity magic, but Mash turned on his supposed muscle magic, and in just a second he was down and back up at the bottle. He said there was no choice for him between winning and his friends. Mash suggested that Lance finish this fight because he doesn't see Lance as a villain, since the bottle he threw was a hoax. He flew up to him and picked up the rail bottle, and Lance realized his speed was too much for him to handle. He asked Mash, why wouldn't someone with that kind of strength just take his coins? Mash replied that he wasn't logical enough to continue this pointless fight, and just similar words were said to Lance by his little sister, and Lance agreed to finish the fight, where he ended up giving Mash his coin. Then we were told about the 3 Easton Academy dormitories, where students are assigned there based on their particular personality traits. Adler is courage and confidence. Orca is wisdom and determination. Alan is talent and ambition. All of these dormitories are in competition to defend their principles and positions. We were then transported to Adler to Mash and Finn, where Finn explained the coin system. When Mash collects 5 silver coins, they will turn into 1 gold coin. And then Finn remembered about the potions homework with Mandrick. And then suddenly Lance appeared, who Mash had persuaded to help them through a picture of his adorableness. They went to the kitchen, where Lance began to show them how to use magic to calm the nervous root and how to make potions from it. Finn repeats after him, a little pumped even his skills, but Mash at the same time without magic maximally pissed off the root, from which he turned into a monster, which he hit to appease. However, since Mash can only cook cakes, he managed to make cakes with mandrake root instead of potion. We were introduced to the students of Alan's aristocratic dormitory, where Abel Walker, 2-banded magician, gave the task to his assistants from the Fawn to take away all the coins because Abel aims to become a divine conduct. By the way, he already has 15 gold coins. They take them from everyone they find. Then the next day it turned out that the dormitories Adler and Lang will be a joint activity to collect stones from the heads of forest scorpions, for which give bronze coins. For stronger scorpions with quadrangular stones give silver coins. And their snashy heroes met Barrett, who was jealous of the fact that Mash is running after girls. And also had a problem with the fact that in his opinion all the popular handsome guys take away from him girls. So he wants to become a divine conduction, so he can use the Bureau of Magic to destroy all the good-looking guys so they won't stop him from hanging out with the pretty girls. Plus has fallen in love with Lemon, who as we know loves Mash. After they announced the beginning of the lesson and all went to the forest, but before that Mash was very suspicious student of the clan Silva Iron and he said that they will meet him in the forest, where further already on the mission to Lance pestered Finn and Lemon to help them farm scorpions, and Mash met Dot, who saved the girl from the Nunium. Turns out this girl was from Alan and she has a love magic that she manipulates everyone with. But since Dot is weird with girls, she manipulated him without magic, but her magic didn't work on Mash, where she now decided to manipulate her into being threatened by the very same Silva. Dot said he would beat him up for this hottie. At the same time, while Lance and his two nubs together beat the scorpion, Lance was worried about Mash, because that Silva who threatened him belongs to the Red Bow Mages and Lance is worried that Mash can get grief from the Force. But Silva had already gotten the Square Stone and suddenly appeared right next to our heroes and he heard Dot saying that he would beat him. Dot saw him and immediately attacked him, but he had no trouble defending himself and punched Dot in the stomach and accidentally knocked a brownie out of Mash's hand. Dot immediately began to think of a plan of what to do, because Silva is very strong, but he suddenly offered him to play a game, where the stake will be a silver coin and if Dot can withstand 5 blows Silva then he will leave the girl manipulator in peace. Silva also started to pull Mash in there at this point, but Dot said he wasn't going to give the laurels to Mash. He would take his portion on himself and now Dot would have to endure 10 punches from Silva, where in the end after 9 punches Dot was still on his feet. Silva attacked him with the hardest punch of his life, but even after that, Dot was still on his feet and it turns out he won. However, it was all just a show to mess with Dot. After all, the manipulative girl was Silva's friend and they were just messing with Dot that way. On that basis, Mash also decided to play a coin game with Silva. In his opinion, Silva was a devil who doesn't keep his word and he had overreacted to Dot. So Mash offered to trade blows with him for coins, but he saw that Dot's attacks had scorched his uniform and decided to switch back to him. But Mash didn't let him do that and Silva started bragging that he had earned 2 gold coins last year, but because of his retarded behavior he was left for a second year. That being said, because of his strength and talents, they decided not to expel him from the academy. Then Silva and Mash started to exchange blows, where Mash started to dodge and with the first blow he threw Silva a couple of dozen meters away, which shocked him and now Silva started to think that he should not let the second blow happen. However, while Silva was showing off again, Mash hit him with a second punch that shocked him again. Mash then took an authoritative pose and told Silva to keep going. They had 8 more punches to go. However, immediately afterwards, a giant scorpion appeared. It turns out to be worth 2 silver coins at once, as it has a star-shaped stone in its forehead. Silva hoped that this scorpion would distract Mash and Silva would run away, but our heroes sent the scorpion into space with just 1 blow, earning the 2 coins. After that Mash felt sorry for Silva and offered to end the fight, because he had had enough. However, since Mash was in favor of gender equality, he hit the manipulator for balance. Then the others appeared and Lance immediately realized that the Lanians were on the hunt for Adler's coins and in particular for Mash's coin. He told them that Lana was a school of high society, where origin was valued above all else and they would not allow ordinary commoners to become divine conduct. Lance believes that they will soon face a battle with Lana's elite magic, Lupus with 7 magical fangs and Silva was most likely following their instructions. After which, Mash's new coins mixed with the old coins and his 5 silver coins turned into 1 gold coin. He was also surprised to say that he didn't know that there were 3 dormitories, where it turns out that people here are distributed through unicorns. And we were shown the moment when Mash was assigned to a dorm. He went to the unicorn who can read minds, but in Mash's mind he found only a cake and then he sent him as a cake lover to Adler. At the end of the lesson Lance recommended Mash to be careful and stay away from Lang's students. However, our Mash on the contrary accidentally got lost in the academy and wandered into Alan's dormitory straight to the main headquarters of Lupus Magic. He thought he would have a class there, and while he was dealing with the door again, behind it Abel was reprimanding Silva for his loss of coins. Abel believes that only a select few great talents or people with noble backgrounds should decide the fate of ordinary people. He collects coins to become divine spent. We create a pure perfect world and Silva is not worthy to be in this world. Therefore, he turned him into a puppet. Also in Abel's arms was a doll he called his mom. And then our Mash didn't understand how to open the door and he was shocked that Abel was talking to dolls. Abel recognized him and asked him right away, why does Mash want to become a conduction? He answered to live peacefully with his family. Abel thinks that Mash has a good wish, but Mash is wrong, because divine providence is the sculptors of the world that give it shape. They are the vessels of divine magic. Abel couldn't sense Mash's magic or potential accordingly. In response to this, Mash clarified, "Why would Abel want this title?" He answered, "To return the world to its true form, because in the old days there was a natural selection where the strong devoured the weak, but in the current time there is equality. This, according to Abel, is wrong. After all, the weak should serve the strong and it is a law of nature." But Mash only because of this realized that Abel's goal is the same as his, to live a peaceful and quiet life. Abel, however, did not like the comparison, for which Mash apologized. Abel said that he was willing to forgive him and let him out of here if he handed him a gold coin, where he immediately attacked him with a doll, which Mash stuck in the ground and thus cut the strings. It turned out to be Silva. Well, immediately next, Mash was grabbed by a stronger puppet and took a coin from his pocket, throwing it to Abel, but our hero immediately said that they would talk about the coin sometime later. Right now Mash's priority is to get Silva to the infirmary, and someone's life is much more important to him than coins. He also said before he left that no matter how strong Abel was, he could still beat him. Then Mash left, but Abel found not a coin in his hand, but a button from the doll's clothes. It turns out that when the doll took out the coin and threw it, Mash managed to tear off the button and throw it after the coin by tossing it. Then the button flew to Abel and the coin was sucked back to Mash. In the end, our Mash kept his coin. Next we were taken to the infirmary where Silva regained consciousness and all he remembered was being turned into a doll. He saw Mash and realized that he was the one who saved him. However, he couldn't understand why. Since they were enemies, Mash replied that one man's misfortune can bring them all down. Then he accidentally bit his tongue and told Silva to get well. Mash went to his room, where Lance and Dot were discussing the change of image of the latter. He added bangs to like girls. Then Lemon broke in and pretended they were hitting on her, and after she showed them a magic clock that in real time showed the balance of coins between the dormitories, Adler and Orca had 1 coin and Lang had as much as 15, because they are very aggressive and after all the seniors of the dormitory left for internships. This lawlessness is no one to stop. In this regard, Lance suggested the others to stop Lon on their own, and in the end, all of our fraternity agreed to it, and also because of Mash's recent behavior, he was given a punishment of cleaning out the owl's housing, where Lance came there to help him. Also he did it in case the Lon came for Mash, and he was right. The 6th K9 Olor Andrew and the 7th K9 Answer Shinri came for Mash. Mash was shoved underwater by Olor where he turned into a shark himself. Answer took over Lance. He began to pelt him with shurikens, where Lance couldn't use his gravity magic because it could hurt the owls. But in the end he got them in a pile and destroyed Answer. Mash at the same time in the fight with Olor realized that he has a talent for swimming, where he also effortlessly destroyed his opponent, who even evolved to win. But Mash turned out to be a real predator here, and in the end Lance and Mash destroyed the fangs. They also took their gold coin. Immediately next came a super fast masked guy that Lance couldn't use magic on for some reason, and he was also able to dodge Mash's speed. He said that he only came here to pick up his comrades. He wouldn't fight them today. With all that said, he saw Mash's abilities and realized that he was almost the same as him. After these events, this masked guy went to the orc's dormitory and took away the only gold coin, Lore of Magma Rhodes Emus, and our heroes decided that there was no point in waiting for the next attack of Lupus and they should attack first. But before that Lance gave Mash his well-deserved Adler's mantle, and right after that Lemon came running and said that Tom was hurt. He was lying in the infirmary, exhausted, and he said that his magic was gone for a while, but he doesn't know what happened. He just remembers waking up here. It turns out that everyone in the infirmary had the exact same symptoms. It all started when Director Wahlberg was called to the Bureau of Magic. In short, they thought it was the Lenoskis. Lemon also gave Mash a brownie charm. Then they waited until nightfall and went looking for whoever was doing the attacking. They suddenly saw Lemon, who had been turned into a puppet, and decided to follow her, but she disappeared around the next corner, where they realized from the sounds that there was hidden magic and a door, which Mash used a lever from his sword to send into flight. Then they descended into the villain's hideout and entered the arena, where waiting for them was a nameless Lenwolf who had been placed here to destroy all the intruders. Dota took him on, and with the help of his detonator bombs he finally took this guy out. Next thing you know, there was mud underneath everyone and they fell under the arena, where they were all scattered to different places. It was the 3rd Fong of Lupus magic, Worth Madel. He chose Lance as his opponent. Finn and Dot were thrown together where they will fight the 5th Fong, the pink-haired Love Cood and the green-haired 4th Fong, Milo Genius. Mash, on the other hand, is thrown in with the 2nd Fong, the same guy in the mask, Abyss Razor. In short, all Adlerians will have their own fights. But before that, we were told why the director was invited to the Bureau of Magic. It's because 6 dangerous criminals recently escaped from Daiko 3. Selwar helped them escape and he might be at Easton Academy. On this basis, the director asked the Divine Ray names to check the dungeon, where just the guys started fighting. First we were shown a fight between Lance and Worth-mashle, where Lance's magic could not penetrate the third as gravity can only press against a hard surface, but Worth always protected himself with mud. It made up for all the damage. In the meantime, Worth was also firing super strong mud balls at him, and it turns out he knows about Lance's family of noble blood, so he suggested that he join the Fangs, because his surroundings would determine who he would become in the end. If he's surrounded by Adler's trash mages, Lance will become one. But while Worth was showing off, Lance picked up some rocks and started throwing them at the enemy and damaging him, saying that if he defeats Worth it's proof that Lance's environment is many times stronger than Worth's environment. And the third began to tell that since childhood he had 2 marks and had great magical power, and in Eston he studied from high school where with his power to hit Lupus magic was inevitable. He had gotten the best training only available to a select few. Then he got a potion of mana essence, which is the energy that is sucked out of other students. Such potions were a reward for strength in Lupus, so his strength became 10 times more powerful, and he used his advanced awakening magic, which is something that 1-line mages can't even dream of, and not all 2-line mages can pull it off. Thinks he's earned the right to be called a valuable mage himself. As a result, he summoned the giant mud demon Mudoro. Lance, meanwhile, dodged and listened to him so he could answer him with Mash's words about not being smart enough to do things logically, after which he also summoned his awakening. Giant gravitational anchors appeared around the demon and started pulling him in different directions, and eventually it tore him apart and Worth was defeated. He began to remember how he was recognized as the strongest in the dormitory, but his father refused to recognize his strength even after that. After all, to him he had no value until he was of no use to him. This was the trigger that made Worth want to become valuable, and he improved himself every time. Next, Lance found Worth's diary and asked, what did he think was the value of a man? And he answered the question himself, where he and Worth are similar, because their parents valued only their pseudo-reputation and their position in society, where children living in such an atmosphere begin to believe that the value of a person is determined by position and talents. But Lance doesn't agree with this, because in his opinion the most important thing is to achieve your own goals. And although Lance does not like Worth's words, he respects his desire to become a better person. After these words, Worth realized that his real goal was never to become valuable. Well, Lance continued on his way. Next we were transported to the fight between Mash and Abyss, where the second Fawn said he was sorry but Mash couldn't beat him. He used some arrows and started slashing Mash at the speed of light, who at this point was wondering where Lemon was. Abyss showed him. She was being drained of her magic, and in 30 minutes she would be completely drained of it. When Mash heard about this, he said he would try to defeat Abyss as soon as possible, but he kept slashing Mash with his acceleration spheres and he couldn't hit him. However, when he stabbed Mash with his blade, Mash's abs grabbed the blade and hit Abyss in the mask and shattered it. Abyss said he was a victim of scorn and fear. For all his life he had been shunned, all because of a cursed eye that prevents him from using magic. Abyss then used his awakening on Mash, where a sphere formed around him, where almost all of Mash's speed went to Abyss. But Mash hit the ground to limit Abyss' maneuverability, where he shattered Abyss' blade with his attack. He then grabbed his broken blade with his bare hands and muscular strike. He sealed it into the wall, where he then used Ronaldo's technique to kick it upwards. And with a technique minus the spine, he finally defeated Abyss. And he began to tell us that he was born with the opposite of divine magic. So his parents locked him up and he spent his childhood in the basement. His parents hid their shame and they even tried to kill him. But Abyss managed to survive, and he spent his whole life thinking that it was as if he shouldn't have been born. However, his meeting with Abel changed everything. After all, he offered to be his useful tool, and it was the first time in Abel's life that he felt useful. Mash said that even though they had different levels of family love and he couldn't understand Abyss' pain, he could be his friend. And Mash also said that even though he knew he had his damn eye, he didn't care what Abyss' disadvantages were. He would consider him his friend, and he wanted to have a brownie with him next time. Abyss was understandably shocked at how kind Mash was, so he decided to give him some friendly advice, not to go any further. After all, he can't beat Abel. He hadn't seen a tenth of his power when they first crossed paths. But Mash said that he had no options, and in order to save Lemon he would have to beat the crap out of Abel. Then he continued on his way. Next we were shown Dot and Finn fighting against the 4th and 5th Fangs, where the 4th decided to leave the weaklings to Love Cute. He went looking for Mash to turn him into his magic stone. Love immediately began her lowly manipulations, where Dot said he had a bride to be, Lemon, which made Love realize that there was someone cuter than her. She decided to kill the boys by her father's strange logic. Love was taught that if men didn't treat her like a princess, she could kill them, So Dot responded by creating a smoke screen of explosions to take the staff away from Love, but she miscalculated this and attacked Dot by knocking down his Hidden Leaf Village armband. She then started spinning him into whirlwinds and switched to Finn, and we were shown a flashback of Dot with his Dota 2 sister, where she explained to him not to be a wimp and always fight back, but Dot still avoided fights and often gave up, but his sister told him that it would be until he met a real friend, which he now considered Mash, and the power began to awaken in him. The mark of the cross appeared on his forehead, and his physical strength increased dramatically. Love saw it and remembered the story of the children with the mark on their foreheads. Such mages are called real demons, for when their emotions go out of bounds they unleash all their power. But Dot, before attacking, suggested that she just get out of here, and Love agreed, but suddenly the fourth Fawn returned. Apparently, he thought that Love couldn't be relied upon. We were told that the fourth Fawn is a prodigy and is the only firstborn in Lupa's magic, but the very next second he was turned off by the appearance of Finn's older brother Divine holding Rain Ames. He's considered the strongest mage in Adler and he had no problem with his swords collapsing the fourth with his swords. Love immediately changed her mind and said that now she wants to join Adler, but Rain explained to everyone that in this world it is not words that are valued, but actions. Accordingly, such as magic, Lupus only understands the language of pain. He told Dot and Finn to get the hell out of here, and he'd get all the information he needed. After that he went to fulfill the director's tasks to find Inish and Jiro, whose accomplices had supposedly infiltrated the academy, and perhaps they were very skillful at hiding their magic so they wouldn't be noticed. Where in the process he met by chance Mash, who was walking towards Abel. Rain decided to check him for the amount of magic with his spider meter, which himself was shocked because Mash couldn't detect any magic. Rain thought that this was Cell War's accomplice who was a master at hiding his magic. He began to attack Mash, but the one with his swords was only making himself comfortable. Where after he learned Mash's name he remembered what the headmaster said about him, that he had problems with magic, but he was strong of heart and spirit. Rain apologized for attacking him and gave Mash an enchanted handkerchief with hairs that could heal his wounds. He also warned Mash about Abel's power, because his magic power is incredibly large, and although Mash has amazing power, fighting Abel will be very difficult. But if Mash can defeat him, all his coins will go to Mash and he'll be one step closer to the title. To the coveted title. It's also explained to us that Rain didn't do all this explaining for his own sake. After all, he wants the strongest to be around him, and he also learned from the director that Mash has changed his brother Finn for the better. Next, Mash found the room with Abel, where he evolved and was able to open the door, but then he knocked on it for good measure and broke it down. Abel was surprised to see Mash, because he thought that only Rain could resist him and Mash could not be stronger than Divine Providence, and his conversation was that those who have no magic should be destroyed, because isolation from society is too mild a punishment. Abel wants to destroy all those who don't have magic, all those who try to protect them. Where Mash at this moment immediately remembered his father, thanks to whom he grew up and already in diapers could do a double backflip. Mash replied that he didn't like Abel's tough ideas and he was sure that they couldn't be friends. Abel then immediately attacked with dolls that had acid inside them. Love, who had escaped from Rain and realized that she had come here for nothing, was watching. Mash continued to break the dolls. Mash also said that if he could defeat Abel, then Abel would be a worthless mage. He also asked where Lemon was, but Abel replied that he doesn't ask names of those he sucks magic from, and he called 3 big puppets at once. But Mash had no trouble breaking them, but immediately Abel took control of Mash's body with his threads and he began to strangle him. But he stopped because he thought it would be too uninteresting a fight, so he showed Mash the fin he had captured somewhere. He started to attack Mash with it, saying that if he tried to attack the puppet, he would tear it apart and Finn would be finished. Mash didn't attack. He just waited for Finn's weapon to break against his body. Mash pulled out his coin and broke the strings holding Finn. The coin also boomeranged back. Abel decided to take control of Mash again, but he began to break Abel's fingers with his strength, pulling on the strings. Eventually he tore them and hit Abel, but he suddenly turned on his magic and Mash's body started to turn into a puppet, and in a second he became a puppet. Where next Abel went into his pocket for a coin, but there he found only a brownie, in defense of which Mash's body became automatic. It's a spinal reflex to the brownie, because Abel's magic disrupts the body's connection to the brain, but he can't subdue consciousness. It turns out that at this moment, Mash's subconscious desire to protect his brownie was able to defeat Abel's magic. With that in mind, Abel decided to use his strongest magic. He summoned the Harm Puppet, which can turn everyone within a 100-meter radius into a puppet if its invisible threads touch a person. Then he started attacking the Parallel, showing off that he was playing around, and Mash brought him back to his senses. But while he was talking about it, Mash had already destroyed his puppet. It turns out that when the puppet attacked him with its threads, he ducked, and when the first thread touched him, he felt it and was able to catch it with his hands and tear it. Abel, of course, did not expect this turn of events. Mash immediately used his muscle magic to grab Abel, jumped up with him, and then like Rock Lee slammed him into the ground with a death grip. Abel realized he'd lost, and he started having flashbacks, where it turns out his mother was an aristocrat, but she was very kind and she treated ordinary people as equals. In her opinion, she was just lucky to be born into wealth. But in the end, her kindness was her undoing, for when she was distributing food to the needy, she was attacked by a man with a knife to take all the food for himself. He killed Abel's mother, and then Abel realized that his mother was wrong about people, for there would be no harmony in this world as long as there were commoners. He began to gather the best of the best to carry out his plan to create a perfect world. And Abyss was the first he took. He chose those who were dissatisfied with this world. But Mash then explained to him that there will always be bad and good people in this world, and it doesn't depend on the origin, and Mash doesn't like Abel's ideology, but he needs to find Lemon. Abel said that since he lost, he will release all the converted students as a gift to the winner. Mash also said that since Abel was doing it for his mom, he wasn't such a bad person. And in the end, Abel released everyone, so our friends came to their senses and began to rejoice in the victory. Duck got there, too, and Mash suddenly said he had to go to the bathroom. Just at the same time, Rain exploring the corridors met Lance, but from his magical power he realized it was Cell War himself. He was the head of Innocent Zero, an underground organization of dark magic. Rain wondered, what was he doing in this academy? And he said that he was looking for someone important, but he hadn't found him yet. Cell War had the same eyes as Mash. Cell War said he had to run and get rid of Abel before he caused more problems. Rain wanted to stop him, but a cannibalistic gourmet serial killer named John Pierre got in his way, and Rain started a fight with him. Realizing that against Cell War, our heroes wouldn't last 5 seconds, Cell War then appeared in the Lupus Hall of Magic immediately after leaving Mash's room. He flipped everyone off and headed for Abel. He called him a lowlife and for his loss, but still he was useful. He helped him gather all the information he could about Director Wahlberg. But since Abel couldn't find who they were looking for, Cell War took control of him and started to get rid of him. But suddenly Mash showed up with a bunch of brownies he'd brought to celebrate his victory. A fly landed on his nose and he sneezed and shot a brownie right at his ear, and he got a sudden headache and realized it was related to Mash's appearance. He realized that he had found the one they had been looking for all over the world. But first he decided to get rid of his pawn and then figure out who Mash was. He pulled out his spiked wand and pointed it at Abel to kill him, but he was blocked at the last second by Abyss, who suddenly appeared and apologized to Mash for not being able to eat cake with him, but he only handed him an enchanted handkerchief to tend to his wounds. Abyss had given his life to save the one who had changed his life, because then, after talking to Abel, he realized that someone needed him, but Cell War said that Abyss didn't have more than half an hour to live. So when he attacked, Mash distracted him, and that's why Abyss stayed alive. And now Zyro was wondering if Mash would be able to save him and get him to the infirmary in time. Mash got angry and kicked Cell War with a rock, which he caught, and Zyro decided not to hold back and kill Mash, for which he attacked him with his carbon magic like Magneto. Also in between, Mash put himself in Abel's shoes and said that he probably wanted to eat cakes too, so he would definitely save him and beat the crap out of Cell War. Abel heard his words and remembered his mother's words, where she said that to understand others, you have to put yourself in their shoes. Abel realized that he was wrong all this time, and now while Mash was defending Cell War from the attacks of Cell War, which started to gain momentum, Abyss asked Abel to save himself and get out of here, where Abel compared his nobility to his mom, and he decided to help Mash, who still couldn't get close to Cell War to strike. Abel placed his puppet in front of Mash, which Cell War began to destroy, but it was only necessary for Mash to get close enough to hit him. Cell War defended himself with his carbon fiber. He said that Mash was the first to be able to catch him off guard and break through his defenses. He asked, what type of magic does Mash have? He replied that it was muscle magic, but Cell War thought he just didn't want to reveal his magic. He pulled out a mirror and said it wasn't a problem. It was a magic reflecting mirror. It was a very powerful artifact that could reflect any magic at twice the size. Such artifacts were supposed to be kept in the magic bureau, and then immediately explained what kind of artifact. But our hero in the next second kicked the mirror. Thus he showed everyone that he does not use magic. And after the contact with Mash, Cell War had a mark on his hand and he said his name, and now he has to leave. But they will meet again, and Cell War left the academy. Abel then said that he was going to take Abyss to the infirmary. Abel told Mash that he would be waiting for the moment when he and Mash would eat cakes, and Abel thanked Mash and said that he would pay him back. Mash's friends were shocked to learn that he doesn't have magic. However, They decided to keep it a secret, but this secret was found out by those who began to come to their senses after Abel's magic, and these fools promised to tell the school authorities about it. After all, people without magic can't learn. We were also shown how Selwarned reported his findings to his father, who told him to bring Mash to him. This concludes the first season of Magic and Muscle. Thank you for watching. We'll see you again.